Welcome to Key News. I'm Jim Lesko, the Executive Director of Amherst Community Television. And Key News is a series that we do to bring both filmmakers and activists to the community and celebrate what they've accomplished. And we're very honored today to have someone that's done an enormous amount of work in Western Massachusetts, Frank Anderson. Welcome, Frank.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, we're delighted to have you here. And one of the programs that you became very involved with over 40 years ago, in 1969, was a program called A Better Chance. And I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of a background to what nationally set that into motion, and then a little bit of how you got involved, and then we can go from there.
All right, I'd be delighted. Prep school headmasters of places like Deerfield, Taft, etc., decided all of a sudden back in the 60s, the early 60s, that their schools didn't look like America, that they were very white buckskin shoe. And the question was, what can we do about this as a system? How can we find young people of color who have the preparation educationally to come into our programs and come here on a free tuition basis? And so that was the beginning of National ABC. It was a preparatory school program. It worked very, very well. And what they did, they set up a whole series of people in places like Bed-Stuy, places like rural Virginia, Tennessee, Alabama, looking for very bright, motivated young men of color. And because they used principals of schools, guidance counselors, they were able to start to find some of these people, pulling them out of nowhere, these very, very bright kids who really didn't have a chance where they were living and going to school at that time. That was the beginning of the program. Suddenly a man named Tom McCool up at Dartmouth in Hanover said, why couldn't we use a public school, a college preparatory public school program to do exactly the same thing? And so he started a program in Hanover with youngsters, found the same way, working through National ABC and their program. In the meantime, I had a martini with a friend of mine who was the assistant chaplain at Amherst College. And he said to me, you know, I'd like you to come on a committee of the First Congregational Church in Amherst. I said, I don't belong to the church. He said, doesn't matter. It's okay. He said, come on, because you'd be helpful on a board called Outreach and Mission. So I went on the board, and a week later I chaired that board, and it was an interesting board, mainly of Amherst College faculty. And one of the things we decided was that a third of the money coming out of the First Congregational Church was going, we had no idea where. Retired ministers in Boston were decided where that money went. And we said as a committee, wouldn't it be interesting to have a local mission, something that we could watch grow, something that we could build on? And so out of this came two things. One was Amherst ABC. We found it up in Hanover. It sounded like a great program for Amherst. We had the right high school for it, College Preparatory High School. The other was public housing that's on but in Amherst. Those two programs came out of a 5-member committee. Absolutely amazing. Both have been extremely successful. This is called a pocketful of miracles. A number of things happened to allow this program, ABC, to become a program. One was the time. This was the time of Martin Luther King Jr. assassination, the Robert Kennedy assassination, Watts, the burning of Detroit. All these programs were going on. The country was in turmoil. And this was a time that all of a sudden the black situation was on the front burner. And it became, in a town like Amherst, fairly easy to get people involved in this program. So we invited a group of students from Hanover and Tom McCool, who ran the program, down to Amherst on a Sunday night to the First Congregational Church. We advertised it in the Amherst Bulletin, said anyone is free to come to this meeting. This was an exploratory meeting. Is this something we really want to get involved in? Several things came out of that meeting. Number one, the meeting was to go for an hour and a half. It went from 4 until 10 o'clock at night. We put together a board of directors in one evening. One evening. I happened to be the first treasurer. Bob Ward, who was the dean of students at Amherst College, was the first chair. We had a number of Amherst College people. Sid Mars was the attorney for UMass, the internal attorney. He set up our 501c3 organization. The town, Amherst College, UMass, Hampshire College came together. The first time, and I've been around here a while, that I had ever seen this work. It was absolutely a wonderful amalgamation of these groups, and we worked together like a glove.
Well, let's come back to the next miracle, because I know you said there's a number of miracles that occurred. But let me ask you about you personally. I jumped right over that part. I was saying, so who is Frank Anderson? Where did you grow up? What was influences in your life that brought you to that table and that point in time where you became an activist? You said, this makes sense, we should do it.
I came out of a family like this. My father was president of a bank in Pennsylvania. And he always believed in payback, and this is corny, we all say this, but he really believed he was very fortunate to be where he was, and he owed something back to the community. I grew up with us sitting around the dining room table, so this was second nature to me. This is something he said, gee, I have a good job, I have a wonderful family, things are going very well for me. What can I do in some small way to pay it back? And I fell into this because of David King, the assistant chaplain at Amherst College, who said, this is something you could do. And that started me on a career of doing this kind of thing. And incidentally, this isn't altruism. If I didn't like to do it, I wouldn't do it.
Right.
I enjoy doing it.
There's a lot to get back from doing this kind of work and,
and
getting
absolutely.
involved.
The payback is terrific.
And the people you meet, and then the beauty of this program, I know that there was a gala affair recently at UMass celebrating the 40 years, and some of the people that came back, which we were lucky enough to videotape, and we're playing now for our viewers. And we'll talk about some of your alumni that came out of this. Out of 40 years, I believe you had an average of 5 to 8 students per year.
Basically, roughly the average was 8. And so we've educated a lot of 40 times 8. Yeah. And most of those young men took advantage of this. The job that we had was to get them through they usually came in as a sophomore or a junior at Amherst High School. And our job was to get them through those years, get them graduated in good shape, so that and again, these were bright kids to start with, but keep them motivated, keep them focused. And then our job was to get them into a college or a university. And we were very lucky at this. We had terrific people. Fred Preston was the Dean of Student Affairs at UMass. He was on our board. He was the one who worked directly with the kids. Superb guy, just an absolutely wonderful person. I'm sitting here today representing so many people who did so much work. It just happens that I'm one of the last men standing, and that's why I'm here. But I'm representing a lot of people who continue to do work in this program and keep it running.
And appreciate that there's always those other people that are either in the shadows or are no longer with us that have to be recognized.
Sure.
And the time and the period, I mean, so going back to 1969, you had an amazing first meeting. And obviously you had the right people around the table to make it happen,
well,
and make those decisions. But what was the next step after that? Once you've incorporated and you had to get the town involved, you had to get
the school involved.
The school, I mean, the actual school. How did you manage to do that?
Well, the next step was the school came to us and said, for a person outside who does not live in Amherst, it costs $10,000 a year to go to the Amherst school system.
This is 1969?
That's right.
Wow.
10 grand. Well, we're working hard to feed these kids and put them in a house. So at any rate, I went to the school committee one by one. And it's a fun story because the school committee is 6 people plus a chair. 3 of the people, one comes from Pelham, one comes from Leverett, one comes from Shutesbury. They all vote no because they always vote no for money, where they come from. And that's not an attack, that's where it is.
It's reality.
The 3 people from Amherst always vote yes. So we're stuck with the chair. And the chair was a guy named Bill Atkins. The Atkins name in Amherst is very famous. His brother owned Atkins Farm System. Bill was an apple farmer. And he was the chair of the board. So knowing we had a 3-3 split, I went to Bill and made an impassioned plea. Please, we really need this. We can't afford the $80,000. He listened to me. He said, Frank, I appreciate what you're saying, but in all full conscience, I can't afford this kind of money. So we had the meeting anyway. The school was packed with teachers, students, all eye for this program. I got up and did an impassioned speech again, feeling it wouldn't go anywhere. The vote was taken. The 3 from the outlying people said no. The 3 from Amherst said yes. And we turned to Bill Atkins and I said, that's the end of it. We're not going to make it. And Bill Atkins got up and he said, last night there was a basketball game. We played South Hadley. He said it got down to the last minutes of that game and he said the score was tied. And he said one of those ABC boys took that ball, threw it all the way halfway down the court. The ball went in the basket. We won and I vote yes. And that's an absolutely true story. So things sometimes happen for the wrong reasons, but they happen well.
Well, in this case, it absolutely worked out for the best.
The last miracle, since you're looking for miracles, well, there have been many. The real miracle is the students and what they've done. But there was also a miracle when it came to the house. We were renting the house. The woman who owned it decided she wanted to sell it. And she had us over a barrel. We've got 8 kids living here. We have a resident family living here. We have a cook working on this thing. And she said, I want to sell the house. So I went to my friend Harold Elder. And Elder is a great name in Amherst. And he was a conservative, but he was a graduate of Dartmouth. And I got him on the board because of the Dartmouth connection. And I said, Harold, I really need your help. Can you pull together a group of the leading people in this community who really run things, get them to a breakfast at the Lord Jeff, and give me a chance to talk to them and just brainstorm. I'm not asking for money. Is there some way we can handle this problem? So what we did, he pulled the people together. I had not met most of them. I was relatively new in town. I got up and I talked about the problem. Bob McCarter, who was the president of the Amherst Savings Bank, said, there's just been a new rule put through with banks in this state. We can take a small percentage of our money and put it into things like 501c3 programs like ABC. He said, you know, I have a quorum here in this meeting of my board. What do you say we do this? Hands up. In that meeting, they agreed to buy the house. I mean, incredible. Things like that just don't happen. So this program is blessed, really blessed.
So I'm hearing this every time you seem to go into a meeting with a group of people, you come out, you move things forward. It doesn't become like, well, let's set up another committee to look at it. At that time, there was it seemed like there was even more of a need to move forward. Now that you get the okay to buy the house, you have to then negotiate, right? How did you end up with the house?
I'm afraid to tell this story. The woman negotiated with a bottle of gin on a kitchen table. This is a true story, too. You walk in, sit down, she puts the bottle down, takes a couple of glasses, puts ice in it, pours it in, and says, okay, let's deal. You should have seen Bob Ward and Nat Reed from Amherst College. And I knew this because I dealt with her once before. Their eyes came right out on stems. It was just incredible. But we pulled the deal. We worked it out. It worked out very well. We owned the house. The bank owned the house. Rent-free. Rent-free. The president of the bank said, I want somebody from our bank on your board because we should have some control. And he took a young man who had just come into town from Manhattan named Kim Harwood, who was a brand new vice president, and said, he's on your board. Pardon me. Kim turned out to be our guy on their board.
There's water there if you need it.
Thank you.
Well, it sounds like that period of time, again, the people, you obviously are a change maker. You're willing to go to people and ask, and somehow you have an ability to get people to, one, volunteer their time.
You don't have to be smart, you have to be lucky.
Okay. So let's say that, you know, I should go to Las Vegas with you because you have an awful lot of luck, Frank.
I'm not that lucky.
Yeah. But you managed to pull that together, all of you, and I mean you, the collective
And
you.
a lot of people.
I'm sure.
I mean, the Amelie Merzbachs, the Nora Hertzfelds, so many people were so helpful. We used to put on an annual art sale on the town commons. The biggest thing you ever saw. Went for 2 days, Saturday and Sunday. The place was jammed. Herta Paulson pulled this together. She was the wife of the head of the German department at UMass. People came out of the woodwork to do this kind of stuff. We made $30,000 on that every year she did it.
Wow.
Absolutely incredible.
Well, you know, we were talking beforehand, and the question is, you know, people think times change dramatically, and they do. You know, 1969 and 2009 are very different eras. But with that said, I mean, it's easy for people to say, well, we have a Afro-American president, the racism doesn't exist in America, aren't we great? And the fact is that, do you think there's sentiment out there that these programs, like ABC, a Better Chance program, are not needed anymore? Do you think what is your feelings about that?
Well, just take a look in Springfield and see if you think there isn't a need for education that is better than is being received. I think there is a need for this program. We're still looking for very bright youngsters who can be leaders. And that's one of the things the ABC looked for. One more quick story. Terry Medley was in that first class. Terry Medley was a kid. I remember driving him down from Hanover in an Amherst College van. I was driving the van. I looked in the mirror, and here's this kid with this comb in his hair. I'd never seen anything like that in my life. I said, "What's the comb in your hair for?" He said, "My name's Terry Medley. I never want you to forget it." Amherst College, full blow.
Wow.
University of Virginia Law School. Today he is a senior counselor for DuPont Goldway.
What I wanted to just say, I really appreciate your time with us and giving us some of the history and the background. I know there's a web page that we'll put up at the end of this that people can go to and read some of the testimonies from some of the amazing people that have come through the program. And they really have contributed a lot back to society. And so I think it's an amazing program that we're fully in support of. Very quickly, I know that you're involved with right now, two other big projects. One is the Fisher House here in Amherst, and also the Red Cross. And we'd love to have you back on another time to possibly talk about those two.
I would be delighted to do that. You see the pin that I wear, which is the Red Cross pin. I chair the board of a 40-member board of directors with the Red Cross Pioneer Valley. I am a team leader. I lead people to fires and floods and get people places to stay. The Fisher Home is a whole bigger story, and I would love to come back, but I would come back with Joan Kachakian, who is absolutely Mrs. Hospice all over this area.
Yeah.
Love to work with her on that.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to come up and explain a little bit about the history. We feel, I know for a fact, if anyone's watching this, that they are doing fundraiser right now, and they have a mark where they've reached about 2/3 of their funds for the upcoming year, which is fantastic.
Isn't that amazing, Jim?
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that this program has so many members of the boards of directors who continue to do this,
Yeah.
I think it's easy to start something. I think it's very difficult to keep something rolling, and my credit goes to them. I think they're doing a marvelous job.
Well, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, and the sustainability of any organization over a period of time always becomes harder and harder because people think, well, that's been going on a while, they must be okay.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that it's a constant, every year's a brand new year.
Constant need for money.
They don't have endowments. They don't have a lot of money to pull out in the long run. Frank, you're a real testimony for those that should become involved, and I appreciate you giving us an example of that, and your activism really has paid off greatly for so many, so I wanted to just thank you.
Thanks, Jim, for having me.
It's our pleasure. And hopefully we'll have another key news coming up soon. Until then, thank you for joining us, and good day.